Hey everybody, you want to see something cool? Check this out. This is Slick Nichols. He's one of the deities from the upcoming Florida Man RPG. Specifically the god of greed, luck, and trickery. Slick doesn't offer blessings, but rather deals. He normally receives prayers from degenerate gamblers, hopeless hustlers, and covetous crooks. If you didn't know, I'm building a Florida Man RPG, and my small team of talented artists and I have been making great progress. In addition to realizing we needed slightly more capital, I also received quite a few emails asking if we could extend or expand the pre-launch, so we did. Remember, anyone who contributes to the pre-launch gets their name on a special thank you page in the book, as well as access to our Discord channel where they can provide feedback and suggestions for the game. Plus, you'll get updates and previews that no one else can see. So click the link in the description and head on over to the GoFundMe to get on board. By the way, I'll be performing at the Clockwork Alchemy Con this year. It's at the end of October, so if you're near the Bay Area, check it out. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Welcome in, everybody. I had the microphone off, so let's start all that over again. Hopefully, we don't have any more troubles. Oh, I don't see any buffering going on, so that hopefully they fixed the internet after I emailed them and told them to reset the router. But welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, Pirate Wife, Kirk, Ruby, Ron, Kevin, Jim. Oh, this is Rogue Bard Advice, a D&D, TTRPG, sports, and everything nerdcast. I am your host. You may know me as the Pirate Archaeologist. You may know me as the Rogue Thief Pirate Archaeologist. You may know me as just Chris, but you also may know me as Captain Bartholomew Bones McCoy. And for this episode, we will be talking like a pirate, because it has come to my attention that today is Talk Like a Pirate Day. On June 6th, 1995, John Bauer, Old Chum Bucket, and Mark Summers, Captain Slappy, were playing tennis. And John Bauer injured himself and let out an "arr." And then they sat down and they chose a day to make Talk Like a Pirate Day. And they chose September 19th. Why not June 6th? Because September 19th was Mark Summers' ex-wife's birthday. So he figured he would remember it. Haha. That is how we got Talk Like a Pirate Day. Yes. Typing like a pirate, left finger be acting like a hook. You know, unfortunately, there have been no reports and no historical evidence to say that any pirate actually had a hook. And if any pirate did get injured, they would get a third of the share of all plunder from all parties and retired. They were very well taken care of. They were very well taken care of. But with that being said, that rolls into our very first question tonight. And it comes from our good friend, Mr. Kirk. And Kirk asks, today is Talk Like a Pirate Day, but what we think of as a piratical accent comes from Hollywood's Treasure Island in 1950. If that movie had never been made, what do you think the piratical accent would sound like? Well, Kirk, I am glad you asked me this question, because I happen to have right here a book called The Pirate Primer. It is the official language codex of the pirate. Now, while you say the typical pirate accent comes from Hollywood, what I am speaking is kind of typical of how pirates would have talked. Pirates of the time sailed out of Cornwall or Devon, and we're talking about British pirates. We're not talking about Spanish or Portuguese or the French. The French had pirates too. No, we're talking about the pirates from the Britain. They would speak with a Cornwall or a Devon accent. So, yes, join the Discord. Thank you, Jim. You know, nobody's put the Discord in there lately. But that's because most everybody is in the Discord. Pretty sure, Kevin, that you're right. But again, they were well taken care of with a third of every man's treasure and then shipped off to wherever they wanted to retire, because they were no good on the boat, especially if they lost a leg. Ron would be chuffed with a Geordie accent. Yep, probably. Yes, like and subscribe to the live. Share this live out there. We like it when people share and like this lives. It gets more people in. And I know this is a good pirate accent because Bacon told me so. Yep, it's all Bacon's fault. So, with that being said, I hope you liked it, the answer, Kirk. And check out the Pirate Primer. It's a large book, but it tells you things that I wouldn't even know about. It gives oaths. It has assertions, negations, how they do inquiries. It even tells you about parlay. Yes, trust in Bacon. Trust in Bacon. So, with that, we are moving on to question number 2. And question number 2 comes from our good friend to the north, Ruby. And she asks, okay, so as a newbie, I find it difficult to understand the difference between a wizard and a sorceress. Well, Ruby, there's one sure way to figure out the difference between a wizard and a sorceress. A sorceress gets her magic innately, like she's born with it, just like Maybelline. And a wizard has to learn it. A wizard has to learn the magic. They have to go to school for the magic. But if that doesn't suit your fancy, I've got some here for you. At their essence, like I said, wizards acquire their magic through disciplined study, and sorcerers come into it true. Sorcerers usually inherit their magic through draconic means, like one of their ancestors was a dragon. Wizards use spell books, and sorcerers don't have to use spell books, but they have a limited amount of known spells. Wizards have to prepare their spells a day. Sorcerers can do it without preparation. Did anyone ever honor parlay, though? Probably. Parlay was just a way of pirates talking to each other as like a truce, temporarily, until an accord was made. The Pirates of the Caribbean did get stuff right. So, And parlay was only used for pirates on pirates. You had to be a pirate and you had to abide by the pirate code in order to invoke the right of parlay. But, with that being said, wizards and sorcerers, sorceresses, and warlocks. Warlocks get their magic from a pact they make with a demon or a devil or a deity or whoever. Clerics get their magic by their deity. So, and clerics were good. Well, some clerics were good. But, with that being said, I hope that helps you, Ruby, because wizards and sorceresses are very different. You couldn't be Dragonborn or a half or Dragonborn in 3.5E if you weren't of a sorcerer. A wizard could not be anything prestige classed like that. That was a cool prestige class. So, but I hope you liked that. I hope it answered some questions. Moving on to question number 3. We only have 4 questions tonight, but we also have a discussion on prestige classes and subclasses. So what's the difference? But our next question comes from Kirk. And Kirk asks, me minis which a friend 3D printed for me years ago are dead. Broken when dropped several times. +1 cat attack. Yes. Mini abuse. Guilty as charged. Well, yes you are, Kirk. Because you didn't paint him. That friend has offered to print them again. But now he has several materials he can print them in. What today is the best material for printing minis? Well, Kirk, I don't know much about 3D printing. So, I had to go to the interwebs. The shellnet, if you will. Haha. And I want everybody in the chat to answer this question too. Because, again, you guys may know more about 3D printing than I would. But what I would say be this. Photopolymer resins, SLA, DLP. They remain the gold standard for capturing ultra-fine details. Think delicate armor trim, facial expressions, and tiny runes. Standard resin offers crisp resolution, while tough or durable. Varieties resist chipping during gameplay and during cat attacks. The trade-off is post-processing. You'll need to wash and UV cure each print before painting. They have to be very cured. Now, as a master of resin work for me fiberglass and me composites that I used to do, I can tell you UV curing cures things quickly, but you can cure things with a natural cure over a course of 7 days at approximately 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So, with that being said, we're running on to more processing forms. You could do FDM filaments. These are your PLAs and your PLA pluses. They're among the FDM, the PLA and its toughest cousin, the PLA plus, strike the best balance of print quality, ease of use, and durability. They handle small features and overhangs well, and their rigidity makes support removal less fraught with breakage. The top filament picks or Color Fab PLA. It incorporates PHA for extra resilience, limited warping, plus or minus 0.1 millimeter diameter tolerance, but they have a premium price point. The Hatchbox PLA is a budget-friendly, reliable bed adhesion, decent layer accuracy for tabletop minis. Pursuament PLA, strict quality control, consistent colors and diameters, silky finish, ideal for smooth paint coats. And then eSun PLA, enhanced flexibility and strength versus standard PLA. Easier support removal, very cost-effective choice for gaming miniatures. Then you have your specialty filaments, your Silk Blend PLAs, your Mica 3D silk metal colors, for example. The metallic sheen straight off the printer, great for armor, weapons, or magical effects. You got PET G, more impact resistant, slightly flexible, resists warping, but demands higher nozzle temps and slower cooling, not as common for ultra small features. It would be good for cat attacks and falling off of shelves, but depending on your friend's printer, I don't know if he could do it. Then you have transparencies and exotic resins. Often lose crispness at miniature scale. Colors can bleed into details, so generally avoid for D&D figurines. So the transparencies and the exotic resins, you probably wouldn't want to use. Which to use? Go resin if your top priority is showroom level detail and if you don't mind extra cleanup. Choose the PLA Plus premium PLA spools for the sweet spot of sharp detail, toughness, and an easy workflow. Keep the silk PLAs and PET G in your toolkit for special effects or gameplay tough pieces. Whether you're printing elaborate displays or fielding armies for your next campaign, these materials cover the full spectrum from flawless portrait to everyday durability. I joked with adamantium, but if you're rich, you'll get a metal 3D printer for real metals. Then those minis won't break. Yes, however, they are a more difficult mini to paint. Because if you don't get the right paint, and if you don't get the right base coat, then your colored paints will never stick to them and they will flake off or they will come off after some usage. I tried painting one of me minis that was a metal mini and it lasted all of about 2 months with color on it. PLA Plus sounds good. Toughness would be good. And PLA Plus has a milder price point. It's not as high as the resin price point, but it is pretty low on the high-end scale, I do believe. Wouldn't that make Kirk happy, have an excuse not to paint them? Oh. As long as he doesn't paint them in grey, because then he still has the grey shame. It's kind of like the black spot, only it's grey and it's shame, and it's plastic. Ha. Yokai prefers metal minis, finds them easier to do compared to plastic. I agree. Metal's always good, but you got to get that good base coat. A black base coat that will actually adhere to the metal and not flake off. And I am getting Outlook messages. Let me just close that so we don't get any more. So what does everybody in the chat think? Most everybody's saying PLA and metal, but you can't 3D print metal. You could 3D print concrete, though. But I don't know if you could get to small details if you 3D print with concrete. Those would be large scale minis for live action, life size minis. But would those be maxis then? That would be interesting to play with. Your friend offers to paint in color, thinking I'd want more detail. Guess could paint after. Well, the thing with the colors, and from what I've been seeing on the old Talkie of the Tick, when people paint in colors, it's usually in layers. So I don't know if you can actually get fine detail. I mean, if you could get fine detail in 3D printed layers with colors, that would be awesome. But I don't think you can. Kevin, Kirk doesn't paint his minis. So, thinking he would carve something out of wood, probably low on the mindset. I mean, sitting on the front porch with a little knife, carving a mini. I don't think that's Kirk. Kirk's probably one of the people sitting on the front porch telling the kids to get off me lawn. But yes, you have lots of info there, Kirk. Replay and pause, and I can actually post this in the Discord, and you can get to there. I did info dump a bunch on the resins and the PLAs because I don't know much about 3D printing. Like, little to none. So I was reading what I was having up. I am sorry I went through fast. With a little people. With a little people. Haha. Kirk's the guy with a cat in lap, eating dinner, typing with one finger because of Hook a Pirate Day. If you got a finger amputated and you put a hook on just the finger, that would be a useful tool. Just thinking of that. Because Kirk said something about typing with one finger because of Hook Pirates Day. Which finger be that? Probably the pointer. The pointer. Because then you could scoop things. Like olives to go in a martini. Or rum. Well, Kirk, there was a lot of information there, and I will post it in the Discord. I will edit it and post it somewhere in the Discord. But we have to move on, because our next item is talking about our prestige classes going from 3.0 to 3.5 to 5e. It's our discussion, prestige classes versus subclasses. I did a side-by-side comparison of them because things changed from 3 to 3.5 to 5e. They got rid of prestige classes that you could only take at mid-high levels of a character. Like, you had to have like a minimum of like 4 levels in one class before you could take a prestige class. You also had to meet certain prerequisites. Like I was saying, a Dragonborn whatever is a prestige class of the sorcerer. And being a sorcerer, the actual prerequisite for that was said must have the ability to do spell casting without preparation. So, any spellcaster who could cast spells without preparation could be a Dragonborn. Wizards could not, because they have to prepare their spells. So, from 3.0 to 3.5 to 5e, the prerequisites: 3rd edition, strict skill, feat, and level requirements. 3.5, similar to 3e, occasionally tightened or expanded, like more prerequisites. And 5e, there's none. They're built in for archetypes. You get a subclass at what, level 3? I mean, Baldur's Gate is the only thing that I've played that's 5e. So, integration, fully operational or fully optional multi-class layer for 3.0. Expanded toolbox, dozens more PCs for 3.5. They had more prestige classes for 3.5. And for 5e, the archetypes are baked into each base class. Customization. You could customize your 3.0 and your 3.5 prestige classes, thematic mini-class options, and deeply optimized synergy with feats. But with 5th edition, you got broad flavor trappings and fewer mechanical tiers. The power impact curve, or the power curve impact rather. 3.0, there was often a large power spike when you went from your base class to your prestige class. 3.5, same. Powerful, but leads to min-max builds. Very, very OP for characters from 3.5 to 3, separating from 5e. 5e is more balanced around the base class progression. Like, for instance, you're a rogue base class in 3.5, and you want to take the Arcane Trickster prestige class. You adding the magic of the arcane to the rogue. You take 4 or 5 levels of rogue before you can take your Arcane Trickster prestige class. And then from there, you could either add a level of rogue or add a level of Arcane Trickster. No, I'm sorry. That's in 5e. In 3.5, once you take your first level of Arcane Trickster, you're stuck leveling up Arcane Trickster. You can't go back. So most people, when they're prestige classing, or at least for when I was prestige classing, I would try and max out my rogue or my sorcerer at least to level 10, so I had a lot of spells that I could have access to before I took my first class in my prestige class. It leads to higher level characters. The publication scope, Dungeons Master's Guides, and the spell books, or the splat books. With 3.5, you had the Player's Handbook 2, and you had the myriad of splat books. Now, those are the books that I have at my house. They're the flimsy paperbacks, like Blood and Tome. That is a separate book for wizards and sorcerers. Then you had Sword and Sorcery or something. You had the Rogues. You had the Rogues playbook. I don't know if my wife goes into my office and pulls them off the shelf. She could say something about them, but she's not going in there. The complexity of them in 3.0, the complexity was high. You must plan with prerequisites. Like when you're building your character from scratch, you had to build in, if you knew you were going to prestige class into something, you had to build your character. And the same goes for 3.5. 3.5 is very high with stacking bonuses across the classes. But you had to build your characters in the knowing that you were going to do a prestige class later. So you would have the prerequisites by the time you got to take your first prestige class. With 5e, it's very low to moderate. You get your choice at either first or between first level to third level. So 3.0 introduced the prestige classes as a way to further specialize beyond the core classes. 3.5 took the 3.0 framework and added dozens of more options. 5th edition, like I said, officially did away with the prestige classes in favor of the subclass, also called archetypes, which we already know. Beyond the editions, Pathfinder leaned fully into the prestige class, doubling down on thematic builds and prerequisites. Many 5e tables, however, still used the homebrew prestige classes to recapture that old school feel, often adding custom feat tracks, skill thresholds, or story-based triggers. For narrative-driven campaigns, however, the idea of unlocked progression, earnable class tiers, can be reimagined in 5e through milestone rewards or special training sequences. What aspects of prestige classes intrigues you the most? Their storytelling potential, the crunch of prerequisites, or the thrill of hitting that next class feature? Answer in the chat or answer in the Discord. What is your favorite? Do you like the prestige class method or do you like the archetype method? I prefer the prestige class method because then you're building the character that you want, not the character that you're given. And you can customize so much better. Did I lose everybody? Giving characters variety, flavor. Yes. Yes. Character variety adds to the role play. They were fun, they were powerful, and they were a pain. Yes, Kevin, they were. But once you got the hang of them, once you've played with prestige classes for a while, like 10 years or so, they just become more of a build. Not just rogue, shadow rogue. arcane trickster, because then you could be the Joker. What is your favorite prestige class or archetypes, Kevin? I got lost in your office. They're on the shelf with me safe. They're the little tiny books. They're the flimsy ones. Somewhere around there I'm missing my rogue book, I think. Or my blood and tome. One of the two. It's round the house somewhere because it didn't leave the house. It's in a box somewhere. It's got to be in a box. It's a trap. No, that's what General Akbar said. Kevin cannot remember the names of his favorites, but he's going to do a think. The office is small, Taylor. You just open the door, you go back to the back wall. It's in and out. It's not like I put up a labyrinth or nothing. There shouldn't be anything in my office but a black table. And maybe me chair. Anyway, while you guys answer the questions, we are going to move forward with our next question and our last question for the evening. And it also comes from Ruby. And it's similar to what we are talking about here, prestige classes and subclasses. So I thought it prudent to talk about the prestige class and the subclasses first. Imagine Mrs. Pirate discovering that chest mimic during search. Well, we do have Hope Chest in me office, Kirk, so it could be a mimic. Yokai's current prestige is combat medic, layered into me half-orc druid in one of me current 3.5 campaigns. Nice. And I'm glad you mentioned druid, because Ruby's question is thus. In proper Celtic teaching, you start as a student and then become bard. If continuing with your education, you become an ovate and finally a full druid. Why in D&D do you have to be one or the other? Well, Ruby, I did get a bit of an answer for you there. In classic Celtic lore, bard, ovate, and druid were stages in a unified system of learning. First you mastered storytelling and poetry, then divination and healing, then finally moral philosophy and leadership. This threefold division traces back to Strabo's Geographica circa 20 CE, where he describes the Bardoi, the Ovates, and Druidai among the Gauls. Dungeons & Dragons, by contrast, isn't built around Celtic spiritual pedagogy, but around genre-based archetypes for gameplay. Each character class, bard, druid, fighter, wizard, etc., represents a distinct set of abilities and narrative roles that players choose at first level and advanced in isolation to preserve clear mechanical balance. The Ovate role, part seer, part healer, part nature mystic, is conceptually wedged between bard and druid in neo-druid orders, but never got its own slot in D&D. Gygax opted for fewer, broader classes rather than a multi-tiered mystical hierarchy and any overlap. For instance, the druid's herbalism versus the bard's lore is handled by giving each class its own toolkit. If you yearn for an ovate style blend, D&D's multi-class rules lets you mix bardic inspiration, druidic spell casting, and even thematic feats, such as ritual caster or healer, to approximate that middle path. Alternatively, you could work with your DM on a homebrew bard or druid subclass, favored explicitly as an ovate. Going further, you might want to consider the Circle of Shepherd or Circle of Stars druid options for more of a oracular twist. Supplements like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything expand class customization, letting you swap spells or skills to learn into that ovate vibe. In your campaign lore, you can always establish an ovate guild or mentor order that characters can join, adding depth without the rigidity of class mechanics. I know there was a lot there, Ruby, but ultimately it's because balance and mechanical balance, the separation, and with each class having their own toolkit. Thieves have toolkit. You have the thieves kit. You have the bards have a kit. I don't know what the bard's kit is, but you also have the forgery kit for thieves and rogues. You also have the climber's kit for an adventurer. So they all come with their own tools. I don't ever remember playing it, but Drunken Master seems like it would have been fun. Speaking of Drunken Master, the Drunken Monk, if you will. Yes, I had a friend of mine who played a Drunken Monk very well. That's all he played. And it was a fun class, from what I remember. To my mind, understand D&D was created by nerds who, to greater or lesser degrees, just yanked names out of lore without often full knowledge of how they were linked. I don't know about that, Kirk. Because the greatest bard of all time, and no, I'm not talking about Yasek, but he is a great bard. The greatest bard of all time is William Shakespeare, but I don't believe that William was a druid or an ovate. Or what was the last one? He was a student. So, and we call him the Bard. Anytime you mention William Shakespeare, it's always the Bard. He was a druid. Really, I did not know that, Ruby. Thank you for that. That is interesting. Ian Anderson, not Gregory of Monmouth or Mark Twain. They might have been good bards. Yes, they might have been good bards. But I don't know who Gregory of Monmouth is, or Ian Anderson. So I will take your guys' word for it. Mark Twain, however, Samuel Clemens. He was a good friend. lost his brother on the Mississippi River when a paddle boat exploded. Anyway, moving on. Would you guys like to move into our deadly dungeon? Oh, wait a minute. No, we have to go back. We have to go back. And for this, I'm going to the big screen. Because breaking news. There was an accident in Houston last night at like 5 a.m. A neighbor drove into Puffy Cheeto's father's house's garage, and they now have a big hole in the side of their garage. From the pictures that she shared on the Discord, it looks like they knocked the house off the foundation. And even more weirder yet, I gave Puffy Cheeto me address so she could look at me house on Google Street View. Because looking at her pictures that she took of her dad's house and comparing it to my house, they are exactly the same, minus the big hole in the side of her garage. Like, down to the same brickwork, the exterior brickwork. So, with that being said, we want to throw out our well wishes and our sincerest hope things work out for Puffy Cheeto's father, because they're waiting on the adjusters to come out. They were supposed to be there. They elevated it to an emergency, and they haven't been out yet. So, with that being said, Puffy Cheeto, we miss you, and we hope that you get the house stuff settled. I know it can't be fun because earlier this year you had the whole issue at your house with the fence, and now this, not even 2-3 weeks after your mother passed away. Very, very sad that's going on with your family. And yes, as people alluded to in the Discord chat, go put that artifact back. The only one who can touch cursed artifacts and get away with it is this guy, because I am an archaeologist and I don't take the artifacts. Sounds like pirate. So Puffy Cheeto, Amanda, Kirk just said, sounds like pirate, better get busy making a matching hole in me garage. He's only kidding, but he is hoping for a good outcome for Puffy's dad's house. Yes. And Jim says there's way too much going on with Puffy Cheeto lately. She did have a laugh with her brother. It was either laugh or cry, and they chose to laugh. So they said that had her mother been awake or been there at the house, she would have had a heart attack and died. And it was exactly what I was thinking, because I said to her, I was thinking if the cancer didn't get her, this hole in the garage would. She does need a reset button. She needs the easy button, dear. But it's always good to laugh at a situation instead of worrying about the problems. Just take it in and laugh about it. As me pirate wench knows, I laugh about her all the time. And it's just my way of dealing. Pretty unique when you think about it. Most garages only let cars in and out through the front. That's a feature. Oh, Kirk, you've seen the photos. The problem is they still have exposed wires on the inside of the garage. They had to cut the power off. And the good thing is, well, let's get to the important thing. The gas line comes in on that side of the house. Luckily, the gas line had not been ruptured. Yes, Kevin, they were safe. They were, I think, in the house, but everybody's okay. But if they don't get to that corner of the garage soon, they're going to lose that half of the garage roof, because it took out a big hole in the side of the garage and may have damaged the front pillar of the garage, kind of thing. So, but unlike Puffy Cheeto's dad's house, he did not have a doorway on that side of the house like I do on mine. So that is the one defining feature that is different between our two houses. On the garage side, that and my gas line comes in on my bathroom side. So I don't know why my gas line comes in on the other side of my house, but it does. With that being said, we are entering Deadly Dungeon territory. And as we knew last week, we were Deadly Dungeoning with Azathoth and Cthulhu. Oh. Let's discuss Azathoth and Cthulhu, shall we? We already know Azathoth because we had him last season. He's a primordial nucleus of all creation, embodies pure chaos and entropy. Insanity-inducing aura warps reality and shatters the opponent's minds. We know he's got the reality rift weapons and abilities, the chaos surge, madness veil, and ephemeral form. He's near impotent in scale, and combatants risk self-destruction simply by approaching his core. Cthulhu, however, is the ancient great old one slumbering in Ryle. He awakens to command nightmares and madness. His psychic resonance grows stronger where cult beliefs flourish. So, he's a cult leader. Yes, Kevin, it does come from the bathroom side because that's where all the gas comes from. But problem is, it comes up right underneath me jacuzzi tub. So, if it ever leaks and we got gasoline mixing, or not gasoline, the natural gas leaking into our jacuzzi tub, that would not be good either. And me pirate winch told me the other day that she's getting our shower in our bathroom remodeled. So hopefully this pirate gets a waterfall shower head coming from the ceiling, because that's what this pirate wants. Haha. But let's move on to Cthulhu. His weapons and abilities. He's got a tentacle onslaught. He's got the dream call, telepathic attack that lures opponents into fatal illusions. He can regenerate, and he has flight and amphibious adaptations. He combines brutal physical power with high-level psychic attacks, and he can draw strength from collective human terror. He's vulnerable if forced into purely chaotic realms where occult influence wanes, and his psychic lures can be resisted by sufficiently disrupted minds. Extra bubbles. Bacon's in the chat. Bacon, it is Speak Like a Pirate Day, so we have done this whole entire episode with me speaking like a pirate. And you were mentioned because you told me that this was a good pirate accent from the west lowlands of England. So it's all your fault, Bacon. But we trust in Bacon. So, welcome in, Bacon. We love you. Here's the tactical overview for what Azathoth and Cthulhu do. Azathoth's strategy was to unleash reality tears at range to break Cthulhu's regeneration rhythm. And they scatter into chaotic echoes to evade the tentacle strikes. And they wear down Cthulhu's psyche with pervasive madness aura. Cthulhu's strategy was to close the distance quickly with flight or underwater surges, and launch dream-driven psychic barrages to disorientate Azathoth's chaotic fragments. And they exploited the moments when Azathoth's chaos backfires to land crushing tentacle blows. The battlefields rotated through Rylith cityscapes, endless void expanses, earth-torn dreamlands, and collapsing dimensions, ensuring that neither combatant holds a lasting environmental edge. You guys did not disappoint. Because what you guys had in the Discord, you guys had, what was it, 56% Azathoth and 44% Cthulhu. But in our 100 battle simulation results, Azathoth hit 72% of the time to Cthulhu's 28% of the time. The decisive factors. Azathoth's reality rifts dissolved Cthulhu's form. Chaos echoes evaded the tentacles, and sanity breaks first. Cthulhu's decisive factors, the 28 times he won. His dream calls disrupted the chaotic echoes. The massive tentacle strikes land in fleeting gaps. Ultimately, Azathoth's raw, unfocused omnipotence wins most encounters by erasing Cthulhu's form outright or fracturing his mind. Basically, he cheated. But Azathoth wins, Cthulhu dies. Sorry for your luck, whoever likes the Cthulhu cult. And as you can see, this is where our bracket is. Now, if you notice, Bender and the Green Ranger have not moved forward yet because they tied. I made a decision tonight. Yeah, he did basically cheat. He dusted Cthulhu's form. He had the Infinity Gauntlet and he just snapped his fingers and dusted Cthulhu's form. But I made a decision tonight. I need it in the chats from everybody who's here. Everybody gets one vote. Only one. And it's a 1 or a 2. 1 for Bender, 2 for the Green Ranger. And we will tally the votes, and whoever wins will face Ultron. I think that's the only fair way to do it. Otherwise, I'm flipping a coin or rolling a dice And I would roll it here, but I would need the camera to show the dice so you guys know that I wasn't cheating. But it'd be pirate's dice, so I might cheat. Kevin thinks both should team up to face Ultron. We got 4 ones and a 2. And a both. How does everybody like Kevin's idea that they should both team up to face Ultron? But how would they move forward? They wouldn't move forward as a team. Four ones and a 2. We have 8 viewers. There's only 5 votes. It could be down to half and half. It could be a 50-50 vote. And it could then come down to my choice. The Green Bender. Okay, but who would move if the Green Bender defeats Ultron? Who moves forward? Do we have another? I mean, I can't do the Green Bender. Well, I could. Okay. We got our answer. They're both teaming up to face Ultron. And if they win, I will create a composite of Bender and the Green Ranger and send him. Full send. Hey, Kevin. You're combining them both, right? So make a giant Bender and have the Green Ranger pilot him as a Zord. It'd be the Bender Zord. That's the only way to do it. Since the Dragon Zord is still at the bottom of the Angel Grove Harbor, he's got the Bender Zord. Alright, so Bender Zord moves forward. Awesome. Next week, however, we have another Battle of the Bards. Because next week, I decided it's going to be Beethoven versus Mozart. Who wins? This will be interesting. Because Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was Austrian, right? And Ludwig von Beethoven was German. Just right across the border. Is Green Ranger affected by Bender's alcohol-filled innards? Oh, no, his power supply is alcohol. So next week, I'll put it in the chat. Wolfgang Mozart versus Ludwig Beethoven. Who wins? And now we're in chat. That's not right, Kirk. That's not right. Mozart did not have a stutter. And Beethoven couldn't hear that. Anyway, we are in chat. We have good things for the week. A little fifth joke. Ah, yes. Oh, the pirate winch says the waterfall shower is possible. Yes, I like it. What line from the fifth? Is that from his Fifth Symphony? I would have to. I would have to listen to it because I'm a little lost. I'm not up on my Beethoven. Good thing for the week for the Pirate. I've got 2 games this week because Tampa Bay played Monday night in Houston. And we beat the Houston Texans. But just barely. Can I take them off the screen? Yes, I can take them off the screen. We'll go back to the live. But we just barely beat the Houston Texans. And this week, not only do we play Monday night for last week, we also play Sunday here at home in Tampa Bay against the Jets. Haha. The Jets aren't doing too well. Probably, Kevin. I haven't been home since April. And it doesn't look like I'll be home until December or January if we don't get a hurricane or a disaster. But I could be home for 2 weeks, or I could go from this disaster to another disaster. Who knows? Kirk's good thing of the week. We now have not 1 but 2 automatic cat litter boxes. Cat jury's still out about how well they work. Aha. As long as you don't get an automatic cat wheel, you'll be fine. Yes, Jim, I mentioned that to the pirate wife the other night. I told her I wanted a waterfall shower head with a speaker in it so I could listen to music while I'm in the shower. They do make them. And the waterfall shower heads that I was looking at are recessed into the ceiling, and they have LED lights and nice pretty colors. And sounds and everything else. Yep. Oh, you bought the automatic cat litter boxes used. Our shower needed to be redone, Jim. Yes, it does sound amazing. It's a little closet shower. Literally, really is a little closet. A symbol of shed full of profanity. Wait. Is the shed full of profanity? Because if that's where you store your F's to give, then that's awesome. Probably, Ruby, probably. Kevin got a full night's sleep last night, which is rare for him. I saw that, dear. I went to bed last night at 11:30 and woke up at 4:40, and then went back to bed and woke up at 6:30. So it's full of your profanity because it's a pirate symbol. Nice. So here's something for you, Ron. I built a wooden shed in my backyard 2 years ago, February of 24. And my shed is Canadian wood because it's made by a Canadian company out of Vancouver. And it came, walls assembled, floor assembled. All I had to do was assemble it together and glue it together and nail it together and screw it together and put the roof on it and put the door in it and everything else. And I was going to use it as my office. But now the Pirate Wench has acquired it and is using it as our medical storage shed. So, but it is a good, I want to say it's cedar. And oak, maybe. I think it's red cedar. I think it's definitely red cedar. The Lindsay Exhibition and Fall Fair. Trailer park rules are metal sheds only. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Cedar and oak. So if you yell profanities in it, it's Canadian wood. So if you yell profanities in it, does it echo back sorry? I wonder if it yells back the profanities politely. We made it an hour and 14 minutes, people. Great job. I want to give a great shout out and a thanks to everybody who sent in questions this week. Ron and Ruby, even though it was just Ruby, and Kirk. Thank you. Norwegian wood, isn't it good? Depends. Do you get a Norwegian blue with it? Them Norwegian blues, they like pining for the fjords. If you know, you know. With that being said, we are coming to the end of our show. And I would like to take this time to thank everybody for continuing to join us on this adventure that is Rogue Bard Advice. I want to remind everybody to go ahead and send your questions in to roguebardadvice@gmail.com. And go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this podcast out with your friends. Hopefully, if they catch it afterwards, they will join us for the next live. It has always been my pleasure to speak with you guys and give you guys information and answer your questions in any way, shape, or form. And yes, good night all. Have a good weekend. And remember, as always, take what you can, give nothing back. This is Captain Bartholomew Bones McCoy, the rogue thief pirate archaeologist, bidding you adieu and good sailing ahead.